can't understand the racial disparities today without going back to slavery and its lasting legacy, without going back to the founding of the colony, when each English settling family was given 150 acres off the bat for coming to the colony and an additional 150 acres for every enslaved person they brought with them.
We have seen it historically since 1844 with the over-incarceration of African Americans in our police system. We've also seen it with the over-enforcement of restricting the right to vote for persons of color, Black people in particular. We've seen it in maternal health, where Black women are more than 3 times more likely to die while giving birth, which should be an exciting time in their life in the state of New Jersey, because their voices have not been heard.
When we look at Black Americans in the state of New Jersey, we relied on what we consider now, white allyship, right? Back then, white sympathizers to kind of move our cause forward.
And when people find out how endemic it is, then it's like, well, we didn't realize this was so significant.
We have to create those jobs and those opportunities for ourselves. If we wait for the other guy to do it, it might not happen as quickly. And I think if we do it, it's done with love, it's done with understanding, and it's great, and it empowers the community. It's like Blacks, opening banks. They can't get loans, so you open your own banks.
The Lost Souls is a nonprofit grassroots organization that seeks to uncover the names and histories of 137 freed and enslaved Blacks who were sent south as a result of an evil slave ring. Jacob Van Wickle was a judge here in Middlesex County.
He was a prominent citizen here in the current East Brunswick area, and he had what was referred to as a slave castle, if you will, which was used by the slave ring.
The 1804 Gradual Emancipation Act actually promised freedom to children born on and after July 4th of that year. So if that child was a female child, she would be free at 21. If the child was a male child, he would be free at 25. However, what Van Wickle did was he kind of snuffed that promise from parents who they themselves wouldn't be free. But their dreams and hope for their children to see that freedom, it was pretty much extinguished as a result of this scheme.
He had wealth, he had prominence through his position, and he used those tools.
He would lie and say that they had consent to be sold, which they didn't. Then it was sold from New Jersey to Louisiana, Georgia, South Carolina, which were more horrific than New Jersey was in terms of slavery.
The scheme worked as the result of a collaboration between Van Wickle and his brother-in-law, Charles Morgan, who owned a plantation in Point Coupé, Louisiana. He came up and he purchased slaves for as little as $150, whereas in Louisiana, that individual that he sought to purchase would have cost $800. So it would have been cheaper to acquire them up here.
Judge Van Wickle was just an extreme example of a profiteer. And so when we think about the justification for slavery, which was for people to make money, Judge Van Wickle used every excuse, example, whatever way he could manipulate the law to make sure that he benefited financially.
It is very much so illegal simply because of the way they secured these souls. They falsified documents called certificates of removal. They said that, these individuals actually gave permission to go. In reality, they didn't.
He had a syndicate of people who worked with him, and then they would lie, manipulate. They would take little babies. That was against the law at the time for you to take little babies. You had people who were supposed to be over 21 to consent. He did every possible thing he could do to manipulate the law to make sure that people supposedly agreed to be sold, which they didn't.
We know that because these enslaved people and freed people resisted once they got to Louisiana. We know that they resisted prior to even going to Louisiana in the vessels. They were pushing back against the crew that was putting them in the belly of the vessel.
Sloops, I've been informed, is the technical term for the ships. And they primarily sailed out of the Perth Amboy, New Jersey area. which still is an area today where they are building a recognition of the role that the Perth Amboy area played as being a deportation location for the continental slave trade, not the Atlantic crossing slave trade. So they sold literally south and around into the Louisiana area.